All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to get started.
I think what you need to leave here knowing is that artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor is it intelligent. It's just math. This math is a little different, so it introduces some cultural challenges. This math starts with the outcome. Well, of all of my diabetics, which ones did or did not end up in the emergency department? That's a question worth asking, but we're asking it from we're not assuming to know what is it about these patients that made them end up there. We take all of the data we have at our disposal. Here at Children's Mercy, continuous glucose monitor data, as well as electronic health record data, as well as claims data. Once I have all of those data points, I then apply this math to say, well, what is it about these guys that makes them different? Healthcare is used to trying to find the average diabetic that was admitted, but we enter into it with a hypothesis. That's traditional statistics. So this is what this math looks like. We can now figure out who is likely to admit because of one very specific and powerful variable, or hundreds of thousands of variables that, when added together, push that person a little bit higher up on the list. This allows us to analyze, predict, and personalize in ways that we have not been able to do in the past. So analyze being, of all the ways I could go, what's going on right now? And of this particular way, what's different about it? Now apply that to patients. Of all of the children with diabetes, what's different about these ones that end up with DKA? What's different about the ones that have a rise in A1C? Predict. Help me figure out what is the best road. I could be wrong, but on the whole, I have more data than you do as a human. And then personalize. Okay, 10,000 kids that went down this course of care. This is where they ended up. These guys had a good outcome. These guys had a bad outcome. What should I do for this 7-year-old boy with these conditions that might work a little bit better based on what did or did not work for 10,000 7-year-old boys like this one? Now, those are fundamental capabilities. And if you just stop and think about it for a minute, there's really no shortage of opportunity to apply those types of capabilities to this information science that is caring for patients. And here's the important part. We all got into this field to make a difference. And if this stuff remains on the sidelines, if it remains, paper on a shelf of the stacks of your library, then we haven't really done what we came here to do. In every other industry, data is rocket fuel. Amazon did not buy Whole Foods because they care about selling groceries. But those consumers represent their most profitable segment of the market share. And if they can learn what they're eating and when they're shopping and where they're shopping, they can sell you more stuff. So other people dictate how we measure what we measure. Could you imagine if Google invested 95% of its analytic talent to demonstrate compliance or to make a newspaper happy, right? But in healthcare, that's what we invest in. And the way we form our teams and the way we purchase data is the job of IT. Whereas in every other industry, they form multidisciplinary teams that use that data to prioritize and attack problems systematically and to measure whether or not they're making a difference. And healthcare is yet to adopt that philosophy, that mindset, that culture, that team structure, that infrastructure. The opportunity now is not to adopt machine learning in the way we've adopted every other technology. The opportunity now is to rethink the work in light of what is now possible. Right? So Henry Ford has been credited with saying it, but then it was denied that it was ever said. If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So here's what we do in healthcare. Isn't it? You guys held accountable to 30-day admissions and use some kind of a risk scoring system to figure out who is likely to be readmitted in 30 days. So a third party dictates the metric. We then use claims only, and we look for length of stay, acuity on admit, comorbidities, emergency room visits. We find the sickest of the sick that our doctors already knew about, and we bring them to our attention again and again. Could you imagine for a second if Amazon adopted a third-party book-selling population software and then used it to look at only length of book, age of reader, content, and enjoyment? It's outrageous. And they wouldn't do that to sell books, but we do that to figure out who's heading to the hospital. What we see people doing then is say, we have machine learning, right? And then they apply it to the old problem in the old way. And this is what I really want as you as an organization, prepare yourself to use data in new ways. I really want you to rethink the work in light of what's possible. The opportunity is not to demonstrate to a third party that we are compliant with their metrics in the way that we always have. If your job is to take a fixed amount of resources and keep people healthy, then suddenly it's not just about 30-day readmits. Suddenly it's about reducing admissions. And when we work with clinicians, they say 30 days is not enough for me to do something. I need 90 days. And so we're rethinking the problem in light of what the technology now makes possible. And not all admissions are the same. People get sick for different reasons. If you're using the same off-the-shelf standard data rules-based approach to understand the world, that's like Amazon considering you all the same exact consumer. The opportunity is to break the problem into smaller bite-sized chunks and then attack viciously, trying to make progress in each of the areas that's presented to you as an area worth pursuit. Break the world into smaller parts. So I stole this one from the company deck. This is not the installation of a new technology. You will need to form teams that have access to the data and these capabilities so that they can, number one, understand of all of those circles, of all of those admission types, which are the ones that I'm most likely to be able to affect. And then from there, use this math to identify, using prediction, which kids in rank order is most likely to need my help. And that's exactly the work we're doing right now with Children's Mercy in the pediatric diabetes space. You have to intervene. You have to do something different, which means that for the first time, you're going to ask teams to do something, not in triage mode, not because that person is already so sick that they've arrived, because prediction lets us get ahead of things. And so it is a cultural shift to ask teams to intervene sooner because somebody is heading toward trouble, as opposed to they've already shown up at their most acute. And then this is something we don't do well in healthcare. This last step is improve. And what I mean by that is, do not wait a year to look at the standard metrics to decide whether or not you've made a difference. What every other industry has learned to do is to look at the data as it comes in and day out, to figure out the three most fundamental questions of improving anything. And I can tell you, I've yet to work with a healthcare system that can answer these three questions. What are we doing? Is it working? What should we be doing? We have the world's best physicians with the world's best technologies, and yet we have yet to equip them with the ability to answer those three basic questions. Thank you for your time.